that's physical behave like it's non-physical. Then they had the theory, well, maybe because they were shooting the photons not one at a time, that the photons were just bouncing into each other, so that when they went through, they were bouncing into each other and then bouncing off one another and creating the interference pattern. So they said, okay. So the next step, they said, let's just go ahead and shoot the photons one at a time so that it is impossible that they cannot be bouncing off one another. So if we eliminate that variable, then we should get the two-slit pattern and not an interference pattern. So then they do the experiment that way. They shoot the photons through the dual-slit barrier one particle at a time, assuming that they would get a dual slit pattern, and they didn't. They still got a interference pattern like the non-physical waves. Didn't make any sense. So then they're like, we need to figure out what's going on here. We're gonna basically put a device that can record where the photons are going, what they're doing, in simplest terms. So they put a device to look at the slit so that when the photon went through the slit that they could record which slit the photon went through. And this is where it got crazy. They ran the experiment the same way. The only difference is that there was a device there to just record what was going on, and now the photons went through and behaved like photons and created a dual slit pattern for the first time. They now behaved like something physical. So over the years, scientists kept complicating this experiment to figure out basically what the crap was going on. They got to the point where they basically made the experiment complicated enough, but at the same time foolproof enough, where they could definitely determine what was going on. And essentially, what the conclusion is that the sheer act of observing is what made the photons choose to be something physical rather than just potential. So the experiment basically showed that something in our universe that is physical, such as an electron, is basically has the potential to be something physical, but becomes something physical when it is observed. So you got to watch the documentary. I got to stop there in terms of what that means and things like that. It's incredibly interesting, but it's basically saying like that our universe is potentially, a universe of potential mathematical equations that becomes reality once there's consciousness there to observe it and make it real. A lot of scientific implications, a lot of even religious and philosophical implications. So, a lot of information at realityfred.com on the blog page there. But that's where then suddenly, even with this, the simulation hypothesis, the simulation theory, which is basically a matrix-like reality, a theory of is a matrix-like reality possible or something like it, suddenly now in the world of theoretical physics, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, this is honestly, it's almost like this is like, seems to be the direction. I'm not saying that the Matrix exists, but the direction that a whole new way of looking at the universe and reality, ever since the kind of the conclusive final way of performing this dual slit experiment to understand what's going on, has really shocked the system and has scientists looking at the universe and quantum mechanics and things in a whole new way in terms of what is real, or I shouldn't say what is real, but what is physical. And so that the idea, going back to Einstein and materialism, the interesting thing is when the scientists during Einstein's days came across the quantum entanglement equation that worked, and basically worked because it said that it's almost like distance was an illusion. According to this documentary, they kind of paint Einstein's like saying that he achieved all these many great things in his life, but he literally spent the last 30 years of his life trying to dispute this idea of quantum entanglement, so that he could reinforce his perception of the world being a materialist universe, and he never did. So they're kind of saying like the smartest man of our time that knew more about the universe and relativity and all the modern scientific laws of physics and things like that people are still trying to figure out today. couldn't shake down this idea of the quantum entanglement theory. So I'll leave you with this in terms of this discussion. Just this week, there was, I guess scientists have been trying to do experiments to kind of see what the quantum entanglement theory can do, whether it's, take it from just a mathematical equation and show it working in reality. And I guess just recently a group of scientists in a lab in China just recently did an experiment. I don't know how recent the article came out this week. I can't say that the experiment was done this week, but the article came out this week where they basically had a pair of entangled electrons. I believe they had like one electron in their lab in China, but they took another one into orbit. And they were basically able to conclusively show that an electron here on Earth and one, miles and miles and miles and miles away in orbit, even with all that distance in between them, still were entangled. Now, this is the furthest successful experiment. So this isn't the first experiment of quantum entanglement, but apparently it's notable because it's the most notable right now because of the amount of distance, the successful amount of distance in between two entangled electrons. So you have to look into that, but I'll post the link to that article as well. So anyways, that kind of wraps up everything there is to really all the important stuff about the first Matrix movie, and ending here tonight this podcast with kind of bringing it back to our own reality, and also all of the science and new theory that's out there being heavily debated, and a lot more than most of us realize. It isn't really just like, once you start looking into it and realize this isn't just like a off the cuff kind of like a joking theory. There's very, very, very serious scientists doing lots of work and a lot of discussion on whether something like the Matrix is possible. Pretty freaky. But anyways, and then I want to tease, like I said, we'll do a part 2 because we're going to take a look at Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions and kind of show where the next question is. So again, the question for the first one was, what is the Matrix? Now we understand what is the Matrix. It's the metaphor of control. But we have a much profound, deeper question. I'll give a clue. It's revealed in the scene in Reloaded. There's two confusing scenes in Reloaded. Of course, when he meets the architect, but also when he meets the individual who's keeping the keymaster as a prisoner, and the guy tells him everything's about causality. So that's as much as I'll tease it. But the trilogy does go deeper into an understanding of our human condition, not just our human condition living a life of being under an authoritarian state of being under control, but why? And that's as much as I'll tease. So anyways, for those of you who stuck with me till the end, thanks. I hope it was rewarding. I hope you learned a little bit. And definitely, like I said, follow up on the website. Everything we talked about is there. You can learn more and get some more specifics. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you right back here. We're trying to do a podcast a week, and we have another one lined up. We'll be recording in about 3 or 4 days from now, so we should have another one ready for you next week. Thanks, and good night.